Good evening. I'm thrilled to welcome all of you to the 2018 Pan-India Booth Alumni Reunion, or PiBar as we affectionately call it. I wanted to first thank all of you for being such an engaged and interested community, for keeping the Booth alumni spirit alive and thriving in India. I had the great pleasure of being in Chennai last year for the 2017 PiBar event, and I can say it was easily one of the highlights of my first year as Dean at Chicago Booth. I'm glad to see that you continue to do this event every year and that it continues to be heavily attended. What I thought I would do is to give you sort of an update on the school, tell you a little bit about what I've been doing with my time these past several months. So since I became dean, I've essentially been on the road, I would say 50 to 60% of the time, going around the world, connecting with other alumni like you. So I've done Meet the Dean events in London, in Beijing, in Hong Kong, and various cities in the US. And I think I've managed to meet many of our alumni, certainly I think both in terms of one-on-one meetings and in terms of the big Meet the Dean meetings. It's just been a great opportunity for me to meet all of you, find out about what connects you to the school, what are things that interest you about the school, what would you like to learn from us, how are ways that we can help you. So it's been a wonderful learning experience for me just in terms of forming that connection. The other thing I've been doing is, since I came to Chicago Booth as an outsider, is trying to understand the school better, learning more about the faculty culture, learning more about the student culture. And I can say that honestly, after 15 months on the job, I don't feel like an outsider anymore. I feel like I'm very much part of the school and the system, and I'm looking forward to moving it in great directions. So when I was in Chennai last year, I gave you some updates. We had some very good things happen to us. I think just before the PiBar meeting last year, Richard Taylor, whom many of you had as a faculty member, the Charles Walgreen Distinguished Professor of Behavioral Sciences, he had won the 2017 Nobel Prize in the Economics. And we had also, I think around that time, announced a big gift that we had received from the Waldmans, largely to support student efforts. So I'm happy to say that the momentum that we had at the time continued through the year, both in terms of faculty performance and recognition, and faculty recruiting, and also in terms of connecting with the alumni and raising more money and resources for the things that we want to do. So on the faculty side, one of the big gifts that we got last year was from two of our PhD alumni, John Liu and Cliff Asness, who co-founded AQR, the hedge fund. And they very much wanted to help the school with recruiting of junior faculty. So they gave us some resources to help junior faculty get teaching and research support when they first joined the school. And I'm happy to say that that came in incredibly handy. We had, by any stretch, the best recruiting year in our history this past year. We hired over 23, I think something like 23 faculty members, 5 of whom have taken a deferred start and will be beginning next year. But this is the single largest group that we have ever brought in. And it's, I would say, easily the highest caliber of faculty that we have ever hired. We hired pretty much all the best faculty in finance and in economics, which are two areas where we had not been doing as well. So this bodes really well for us, I think, going forward. And we also had some pretty amazing hires on the senior side. Ralph Koijen, who had been in the finance group and had left, came back to Booth this year. He turned down an offer from Princeton. And Amy Ward came from USC. She's going to be a faculty member in operations, so she comes in as a senior faculty member and adds some incredible strength in that area. And I guess just about 2 or 3 months ago, we announced that we had hired Senthil Mullainathan from Harvard Economics. So Senthil, of course, is a very sort of world-renowned scholar, winner of the MacArthur Genius Award for his work, and has done a wide variety of research in the behavioral sciences and in economics, and also applied it to a huge number of social issues. Right? He co-founded the Poverty Action Lab at MIT, co-founded Ideas 42, which tries to use behavioral sciences to help social enterprises. So we're incredibly fortunate to have been able to recruit Senthil to come to Booth. And what Senthil will be driving is something that I feel is at the core of who we are as a school, which is he's going to set up a new center that looks at data sciences and artificial intelligence. So the core of the center is to look at human and machine intelligence, right? What are ways that we can combine economics and the behavioral sciences and use big data to address some of the really important questions of our time in fields like medicine and the law. So this was a huge coup for us, and we're really thrilled that he's on our faculty. One of the big objectives I had coming into this role was to build a better connection between Booth and the university. If you look at the college, for example, in the past 10 or 15 years, it's risen to incredible heights and great eminence. And I wanted Booth to have a better connection with the college in particular. So I'm very pleased to announce that starting actually right now, we have a new undergraduate track in the economics major, which is going to be called business economics. And this is going to be jointly taught by the economics department and by Chicago Booth faculty. So this will represent the biggest move by Booth into teaching undergrads in, I think, over 60 years, since about the late 50s. And I think has incredible promise, both for the college, which I think is going to attract a huge number of students who will be interested in taking a new undergrad major in business economics. So students who might have gone to, say, a Wharton to do the undergrad business degree, I think will find this a better and more interesting alternative. And I think it's great for Booth. It's great for our faculty to be able to teach these amazing students in the college. It's actually been a great help for us in recruiting faculty who find it much easier to begin their career teaching undergraduate students and then working their way up to teach MBAs. So I think in a few years, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the #1 major in the college. So this is a huge initiative for us and one that I think has incredible promise for the future. Last thing I want to leave you with is that, as you know, we have a building that we have been constructing in Hong Kong for the AXP, but also primarily to serve as the university's hub for everything it does in Asia. And I'm pleased to report that the building was completed a month ago or so. We've had students in it taking classes in the AXP program. We'll do the grand opening at the end of November. So that'll be a big event. Carrie Lam from the head of Hong Kong will be there. President Zimmer will be there, and a bunch of our board of trustees and council members will be there. So this is a huge step for us to signal our commitment to Asia and to using Hong Kong as a base for all the things that we will be doing in Asia going forward. So I'm very pleased to have with me today one of our great alumni, Luis Miranda, who all of you know and had a great deal to do with the founding and the successful running of PiBar. Luis is also on our global advisory board in Asia and has done a great deal to help the school with his advice, mentoring, and resources. So we're fortunate to have Luis in town to visit his son who is in the college. Welcome, Luis.
Thank you, Dean Madhav. And I've got a list of questions which have been sent in from the alumni over here, and it gives me a chance to be live at PiBar, even though we're both sitting in Chicago. So the first question is, you were previously Senior Associate Dean at Stanford GSB, so you're familiar with how top-tier business school runs. What has been something unexpected that you've come across in your first year as Dean at Chicago Booth?
So if I think about my transition from Stanford to Chicago, I think the way it's been different really depends on which constituency you're talking about. If you think about the role of a dean, you deal with alumni, staff, students, faculty, and so on. If you think just about the students and faculty, the two primary groups I deal with on a day-to-day basis, the transition has been very different for those two groups. On the faculty side, I would say there has been almost no difference. If you look at the sorts of faculty Chicago Booth tries to recruit, they're exactly the kinds of faculty that Stanford GSB is trying to recruit, right? They're probably our biggest competitor. So in terms of understanding the faculty, what they want to do, their taste function, the kinds of research that they'd like to produce, where they would like to publish, it's been seamless to me. I feel like I might as well have been in Stanford GSB. The really big changes on the student side in a couple of ways. First, Stanford GSB has just a single MBA program, right? They don't do part-time programs, they don't have any evening, weekend programs, and they have no international presence. So at Chicago Booth, you're dealing with a much wider, more diverse student body. The full-time MBA program at Harper is pretty much like the Stanford GSB program. But then in addition, of course, you have the evening program and weekend programs at Gleacher. you have the XP in Chicago, and then of course the programs in London and Hong Kong. So you're dealing with a much more diverse, more international, more varied body of students with their different needs and interests. So that's been fascinating for me from a different standpoint. I would also say a huge difference between the schools is that the student culture at Booth is just significantly better. In the sense that the students come in, they fully understand what the school is about, that our aspiration is to be the leading academic school of business in the world. So they get that that's what the school is, they get what the faculty are trying to do, and they recognize that in order for them to benefit, it means that they have to come here, put their heads down, work hard, and learn from the faculty, and they completely buy into it. So there is incredible alignment, and the best signal I have of that is that I get almost no emails from students complaining about anything. Okay. There's nothing where they say, I wanted this and I didn't get it, I got something else, or that it's too hard in any sense. They buy into the mission of the school, they buy into the way that it works, and they're willing to work hard and reap the benefits. So I think this is just a much better student culture, and I'm really benefiting by being here as opposed to Stanford.
That's great to hear. And the second question, also from Anil, the class of 2009, is that a Booth MBA clearly has an undeniable great value. But the cost of a Booth MBA has been going up significantly, especially in terms of when you look at the rupee depreciation and the loans people take to come over here. What are your thoughts on that? And I also always wanted to be on a talk show, so I'm going to keep flipping these cards out after I finished.
As long as you don't flip it at me. So I'll answer that in a couple of ways, right? First is how do we think about international students and what's happening there, and specifically with regard to India. I think with regard to international students, the entering class this year had the lowest proportion of international students we have had in quite a while. We are barely at 30% now, and I remember days when it was much higher. At Stanford we were 42%. Some of it is clearly due to political factors, that students from certain regions of the world are no longer applying for the MBA program because they're worried about getting visas to study, or even if they do, being able to then work after they finish their MBA. So this tends to be concentrated in certain regions. We have gotten very few applications, for example, from the Middle East or from Russia or countries like that. So that is sort of one issue, which is largely sort of out of our control, that unless there is sort of a shift in terms of the regime or in terms of how students perceive it as being easy to get a visa, this is going to be an issue. Now, from my standpoint, from the school standpoint, we want to be a very diverse school, right? We want to be able, to attract students from all over the world, and that's getting harder both for these political reasons and because it's increasingly expensive to do an MBA. If you're in a country where the currency has depreciated, like India, the cost of coming to the US for a 2-year MBA might seem prohibitive. So I think it's incumbent on us as a school to find ways to make that feasible. And one of the big things that I'm trying to do going forward is to launch a scholarship campaign. We plan to launch it later this fall, and the goal is to raise about $75 million over a 3 to 4 year period to support only scholarships for students. Our goal is that we want to attract the best students, and affordability shouldn't really be an issue. So whether it's making sure that they get the right financing or giving scholarships to make it easy to attend in the first place, I want us as a school to be able to do that. So it is an issue. I fully recognize it's an issue, and it's a problem that we should take on and own. And I'm very confident that we can find the resources to make this work. As you know, we have targeted scholarships to students from India that some of our alumni have set up, and our hope is to generate even more scholarships along that front. And also the other angle is that we have historically not given scholarships for people who attend the EMBA programs. But going forward, that's something, again, I want to change. I want us to start offering scholarships to attract students from India to come to the Hong Kong program, in addition to those who want to do the full-time program in Chicago.
Thank you. Now, there's a lot happening in India today. There is the center in Delhi, there's the Tata Center for Development, the IIC, the Rastandi Center runs a course with the Tatas in India. The alumni would like to get more involved. So what are your thoughts on how can the alumni get more involved with what the school is doing in India?
So we're very excited about the things happening in India, right? And the reason that it's great is that these are things tied to the core mission of who we are as a school. Often schools will do things abroad that are very much one-off, right? Or that don't really fit in with who they are, but they feel there is some effort they need to take. What I love about all the efforts you mentioned is that they go to the heart of the school, which is the faculty and the research that they want to do. There is huge appetite among the faculty at Chicago booth and at the rest of the university to do research in India, to come in and understand the country and to do work there and try to have an impact there. The TCD, for example, is all for funding for research projects done in India, which could have a huge impact, right? Whether on a social front or other fronts. And we have faculty from Booth involved in it, like Rebecca Dizon-Ross and others, but huge numbers of faculty from across the university, like Michael Greenstone and others who are interested in it. So the more we can get faculty interested in coming to India, doing work there, I think it serves many purposes for us, right? It makes the faculty global, it connects us better to India, which is a huge key market for us. And I think it just helps the school have a better presence and be a more global school. So to the extent that alumni can help the faculty with getting access to data, to being able to do their research in a better way in India, I think that would be wonderful. And the other area as well is if there are alumni who are able to help us do, for example, corporate programs, sort of non-degree executive education programs in India, that is something we would love to do. We don't do as much of it as I would like. When I was at Stanford, I ran the largest exec ed program at Stanford, which was actually with Infosys. It was a multi-module program, and we would spend time in Mysore and Bangalore. It was great for the faculty. I think it was great for Infosys. So to the extent there are alumni who feel that you would like Booth to be involved in running non-degree programs in India, that is something we would love to be a part of as well.
And as we now celebrate the 5th anniversary of the center in Delhi, this becomes even more important, and it gives us a chance to celebrate. And I guess what alumni may like to know is how do we coordinate with the university?
Sure.
We used to have a person in India, that position is being restaffed.
Right.
So it'll be helpful if down the line we are aware of who is the point person for us to be.
No, I think that's an important point. It's something that I definitely want to look into. I think finding a way to coordinate all of our efforts in India is critical. Having the Delhi center is key to us because it gives us a physical location there. But I completely get you. Having somebody there who represents the school and who can be the point person for the alumni to contact, I think is important, and that's something I promise I'll look into.
Sure. What's the future of non-degree executive education in India, Madhav?
Sure. I think if I look at non-degree executive education, that's an area where Booth has historically not had a great presence. Certainly relative to our peers, right? If you compare the amount of work that we do relative to a Wharton or a Harvard, certainly, I mean, Harvard's in a very different league on that dimension. We have never done as much. It's something I want to change. So a key step there is we have a new associate dean who will manage executive education. She was appointed on September 1. Her name is Meena Weirs. So Meena now reports to Randy Krosner. So Randy is the new deputy dean. He oversees all of our global programs, and Randy also oversees non-degree executive education. So it's very well aligned, and one of the key things that they would like to do is for Booth to start doing more non-degree programs, in the Middle East and in Asia. So that's a big focus, and again, to the extent the alumni can help us sort of identify relationships or contacts that will help us do more work in India, or a modular program where we do some work in India and some abroad, we would love to do more along those lines.
Okay. And the final question, you mentioned earlier that the Hong Kong Center is now going to be open soon. What is the university and the Booth School's plans for utilizing the Hong Kong campus and the centers in Delhi and Beijing?
So you're already on message. I mean, the Hong Kong is a campus and Delhi and Beijing are centers. The university is very particular about these names. Largely, I think the difference is the following, right? Beijing and Delhi are great centers in that they will host faculty, they might host some programs, some events, but there is no degree teaching being done at those places, right? I mean, it's an incredible resource to support what we do there, but we're not teaching classes there. Hong Kong is different. It's joint between Booth and the university, and the goal is that Hong Kong will be the center for all of our Asian activities. So we will do study abroad programs for the college in Hong Kong, plus we'll be teaching the AXP program in Hong Kong. And I think the big benefit is it gives us a stable location that belongs to us in a key market in Asia. But the Hong Kong campus doesn't exist to support Hong Kong or even southern China. It exists to support everything we do in a crescent, I think, going from Japan all the way down to India. And the goal is that because faculty will now be traveling to Hong Kong, they will take that opportunity to travel to Japan, to India, to other places there, to research with companies there, maybe do non-degree executive education programs there, become more global, become more immersed in Asia. There is huge appetite at the U of C for faculty to come to India and Asia in general and learn about what's happening there, because the issues, the problems are sort of very unique and super interesting. If you think about urbanization, for example, that's a big area of interest to people at the Mansueto Institute and in the urban labs. And so having those faculty now come to Hong Kong to the campus, but then go do research in India or China, that's something very exciting that we would like to do. So the hope is that the campus spurs huge amount of work on the part of our faculty to really make this the premier center in Asia and to have a lot more impact there.
Well, thank you, Dean Madhav. Thank you for all the support you've given to PiBar. You were there last year. Neither of us are going to be there this year. But to all of you in Lonavala, hope you guys are having a great time. The weather, by the way, is lovely in Chicago.
Again, I'm sorry I couldn't be there, but I really appreciated your hosting me last year. And I hope you have a wonderful time with your family this year as well. Thank you.